I'm excited. We're talking about how to grow your advisory business. And there's a lot of business owners out there who are growing a CPA firm, maybe a financial advising firm, any kind of advising expert business, right? You could be an HR consultant. So we have some of those people right here at our table, so to speak. And I'm really excited to just have this conversation and be of encouragement to whatever you're going through as you're trying to grow your advisory business. So I want to introduce Brian Carney, Matthew Burr, and Scott Hensley. So if everybody say hello to our audience.
Hello. Thank you. Thank you
Hello.
for having us.
Absolutely. So in today's episode, we're going to be talking about having everybody share, what was the hardest part of growing your advisory business. Then we're going to dive into what was the most expensive mistake that you ever made, because we want to learn from the mistakes other people made, and how did you recover from it. And the third thing we're going to cover in today's conversation is, what was the biggest hiring mistake? Because we're trying to scale our advising business to hopefully seven figures and beyond. So you're going to have to hire. What was the biggest, or I guess, what was the most expensive hiring mistake you made? And then just wrapping up our conversation with, what are you doing now to land your best clients, your biggest clients? What's working now, this year? So to kick it off, I'd like to introduce Brian Carney. Brian, you've got a lot of letters behind you. Oh my
Thank
gosh, I don't know if I can read this all.
you.
Um,
You don't have to read it all for sure.
a lot of letters. All right, he's got every certification. But Brian is the co-founder and the face of Rivers Edge Advisors. So he is a financial advising firm. Brian's niche is serving business owners and entrepreneurs. So if you are seeking comprehensive planning services, he's the guy for you. He's been in this field, financial services industry, for pretty much his entire career, since 2001. And he is from, let me think, remember. Brian, where are you from?
The great state of Delaware.
Yes, I remember that. So Brian, let me start with you. Tell me a little bit about, what was your experience? What was the hardest part of growing your firm?
Well, I think it's a really interesting question because when you have a financial planning practice or an investment advisory business, basically all you do in the beginning is go and find clients. And then you start to get some scale and you go, okay, I can't do all of this by myself. So I was literally doing every aspect of someone's financial plan investing. And I think it really is a challenge. Once you hit a certain critical mass, and it depends on what that is for each firm, you definitely have to hire people to do things that you either don't like or aren't good at, or both. So I think when we got to a certain point, we realized, okay, we actually have to start hiring people. And I think we probably waited a little too long. When you're dealing with trying to grow, it becomes difficult. A lot of business owners have that. All right, I think I need someone, but I'm not sure cash flow supports that, and vice versa. And I unfortunately think that's sort of the wrong thought. It's how, this is an investment, and if I spend the money to hire people to do things that I don't like to do, that actually frees me up to do more high dollar value things. So that was sort of one of the big eye opening things for us as we were starting to grow.
So now, how did you fund your first hiring then? Did you just fund it yourself, or?
Yeah, straight out of cash flow. We've hired everyone pretty much out of cash flow, and we definitely made a couple of hires probably 6 months too late. It was sort of like, hey, everyone else is drowning. Now we have a big problem. Everyone's kind of freaking out, and now you go, awesome, we've hired someone. Now you have to train them, and they go, well, I don't really have time for that. So I think that was a real
Mhm.
eye-opening experience for all of us to try not to do that ever again.
And where along your growth path did you make that first hire? Like, so when you started, and you're the co-founder, so
Yep,
when your partner, your
that's
business
right.
partner, you start River's Edge,
Yeah.
and what year was that?
In 2000 and well, technically 2013, we rebranded a couple times, but that's a story
Okay.
for a different day.
So, all right. So you start 2013. When did you make that first hire? What year?
Actually, in 2013 was our first hire. So, but we stayed with two people for
Okay.
probably 3 years, and we probably should have been at closer to four people. in year 2. So we tried to make it work. And it was in hindsight, it was probably not the right decision.
So your first hire was in 2013 when
That's right. Yep. Our first 2 hires were in 2013. Yep.
Good. So because when you said you hired a little too late, I was thinking, oh, maybe you waited for years. And then fast forward to 2022, how many people do you have today?
We have 16 now.
16. So you went from 2 to 16.
Yes.
And then that was the hardest part of your business is just.
Yeah, we're going to talk about this probably later. We went from 2 to 8 to 5, almost to 3 to 16. So it wasn't quite that linear trajectory, the trajectory that you'd hope for. But, we can really talk about that in a little bit.
Yes, I can relate to that. I went from 80 to 30 to 2. So then back up.
Crazy how it happens.
I know, right? Well, speaking of hiring, this is a really good transition because Matthew Burr is the hiring guy, right? You're the advisor to all of us to make sure we hire correctly, and I have a lot of war stories on that too. But so Matthew Burr is the owner of Burr Consulting, and you also own Talentscape, and you're co-owner of Labor Love, right?
Right. Yeah.
Yes.
Executive recruiting company and then a compliance poster company like the one behind me. So yes, I've got the 2 smaller companies. We just launched Talentscape last May, so it's still a slow growth company. I don't have the time. The HR consulting really chews up all my time right now. So
yeah. So HR consulting is what you do. You specialize in labor law, employment law, conflict resolution, which happens a lot. Performance management, labor, and employee relations. So a lot of stuff you cover. So Matthew is a generalist background in HR and provides strategic HR services to your clients. And you focus also on small and medium-sized companies. So tell us a little bit about your journey. You've been doing this for 15 years, right?
I've been in HR for almost 16. I started my company in October of 2015, so almost 7 years. I started doing consulting, March of 2015, and decided to launch my own company, later that year. And so really bootstrapped it from nothing. I was working on an MBA at the time through Syracuse, and yeah, there you go. Absolutely. So,
I went to Syracuse.
got it paid off too. So I'm a student loan debt expert as well. That's my side study. So anyway, really in my area in upstate New York, I live in upstate, and I spend some time down near Dallas and McKinney, Texas as well, kind of back and forth as I grow in Texas. Didn't get a lot of positive accolades to try to grow this business in 2015. A lot of people said it's just not going to work. This isn't the area. You'll never make money. It's going to take 5 years for you to get it going. And at the time I was doing the MBA, I'm like, I don't have time. I need to make money quicker than 5 years. I'm gonna have to do it in 2. And it took me about 18 months to generate profit at the time. I mean, luckily I had I do some adjunct teaching. I was a full-time professor up until last year at a small private school at Elmira College, teaching business management courses as well. But really didn't have the 5-year window that everyone had predicted that it was going to take. And so, just hustled and made sure that it was profitable after about 18 months. I wrote my first book in that time period, but it was slow. The first probably 6 to 12 months, phone wasn't ringing a lot. You're trying to build that credibility. And what I found with my business is the way I had envisioned it in my mind was it was going to be about 70 to 80% HR consulting, project work, 25 to 30% training. It was flipped opposite. It was about 70% training in the beginning, 20 to 25% HR consulting, but it's kind of gone back to the way I had originally envisioned it, more HR consulting, less training. Training's fine, but again, that's an area that I did not expect to happen at the time, and that's how my business started. It was more training than actual consulting, and so work with a number of clients, really in upstate New York, but I do cover some stuff globally as well.
So it sounds like the hardest part in growing your HR consulting firm was that you had to hustle, the hustle part, right? Just to get it going.
Still, you've got to show what the value is to the consumer. Even still today, I'm up at 3:30 in the morning every day, and getting to work, and so it's still the same thing now. It's just at a different level. My business is much more strategic now. I do a lot more proactive coaching and executive coaching, management coaching, trying to get ahead of the employee relations issues, trying to get ahead of the conflict before it happens. The compliance side is big, but yeah, I mean, just the grind. I mean, I think both of these guys are probably going through the same thing. I mean, you've got to earn that credibility, and I think the last question refers to, how do you grow? It's all word of mouth for me now. I mean, I do some marketing. I've got, a weekly newsletter. I mean, you saw that last week. But those are things that have helped me grow my business. It's really word of mouth and just making sure you have that credibility with the consumer, regardless of location. So,
And what's your book on?
student loans. Both of them are on student loans. So I paid off that MBA 117,000 in 33 months, and then my previous MBA or my previous masters I paid 74,000 in 23 months. So I've written books on how to pay off student loan debt rapidly.
Nice. That's a whole nother business by itself, right?
I probably could spin that out if I wanted to, but we'll see what happens
Yeah.
with the government and if they forgive. I'm against it, obviously, but we'll see what happens there as well. So,
And it also sounds like, which is, pretty to be expected, another hard part of growing your HR consulting firm was getting the focus right, getting the balance between how much of it is training and how much of it is consulting. So so I'm glad you're on the other side of that.
and it's interesting. My model is a bit different. I mean, again, it's kind of like it was focused on projects. Now it's more on like a retainer and ongoing project and coaching. So trying to find out how to bundle and be creative with the things that I offer, the services and products I can offer the consumer or the organization as part of that. And so that's been an evolving model as well, and making sure, again, you understand and recognize the market and the competition is important, because, the HR consulting can be done remotely all over the world, but a lot of times companies want you on site at times as well. So you do have that advantage when you're face to face with with an organization. And I mean, I've got a wide range of experience in different industries. I come from a heavy manufacturing, heavy union environment, so I've dealt with things that a lot of people haven't dealt with in their career, and so I think that broadens what I can bring to the table with different organizations as well, besides just the talent or recruiting and compensation. I've done all those things, right? So
Yeah, that's key. That you bring that breadth of variety, in different industries.
Sure.
So you were talking about hustling, and that's a nice transition to Scott, because if we all knew Scott starting out, maybe we didn't have to hustle as much, because Scott is the sales guy. He is Chief Revenue Officer, or I guess if you want to work with him as a fractional Chief Revenue Officer. So Scott is the founder of IPIVX. Am I saying that right? Growth Solutions. And he's an outsourced Chief Revenue Officer. Scott resides in Charlotte, North Carolina, has 20 years experience successfully scaling early stage companies. One of those startups was a healthcare company that went public and grew to over 800 million, nothing to sneeze at, in annual revenue during his 14-year career there. So Scott serves small and mid-sized companies that are ready to scale. And so Scott, tell me about what it was like for you when you were growing your sales firm, your advisory firm. What was the hardest part for you?
So after 20 years living on the road and spending 260 nights a year in Marriott's, right? COVID hit. We all did probably a little self-reflection. What's important? What do you want out of life? And I realized it's really nice to sleep in my own bed, enjoy time with my wife, cook dinner, all of the simple things that turned into be really, profound things for me. So I was doing some consulting during COVID, and then I officially launched my business last fall. So I'm in the early stage, much earlier than both of these gentlemen. But early on, I realized that if I was going to really scale and grow my own practice, I had to have eyes and ears in the rooms that I wasn't sitting in, right? And so to build a referral partner network is where I dedicated all of my time. And so from, you mentioned hustle, but January 1st to the end of March, I had 300 one-on-one meetings with referral partners and built a very robust referral partner network. And then I circled back with the top, 30 to 40 and went a little bit deeper with them. And now the client meetings are happening, right? So establishing the credibility and really getting to know your referral partners, what they do, how you can help each other and collaborate, right? So it's the hub and spoke model, but I wanted to find other fractional C-suite leaders that were working with the same companies that I would be helping, so that once the time came, whether they were a HR consultant and they realized, hey, they really need help with their sales, they could make the introduction, or vice versa for me, right? Whether it's operations or finance. And so that's where I focused my initial referral partner meetings to build out my business and ultimately get, at this point, probably 400 sets of eyes and ears across the Charlotte market that are in rooms that I'll never be in, that are, missionaries for me, and I'm missionaries for them as well.
So you basically grew your own sales team of 300 referral partners out there.
Yeah, in a nutshell, that is what I did, I guess. I hadn't considered it quite that way, but certainly a valid point.
Sales team that you didn't have to cover their salary and commission and healthcare and all of that.
And you were talking about hiring, and so for me, as I continue to bring on more and more clients, it's a interesting dynamic, because even though I'm leveraging all of my experience in different industries to help all of these clients, I'm not sure automation will be an option. I don't think I could hire entry or mid-level folks to really build out the content that I need. There is a possibility, but what I have done is partnered with other, fractional CROs that have bandwidth, and so we've got a huge network of other fractional CROs, and at any given time you have more bandwidth than others, so we kind of partner in that way when we have max capacity of clients, where we can continue to bring them on but outsource the work to each other.
That's awesome. You really put some numbers on the board. I mean, 300 that's a pretty sizable number if you visualize like sitting down face to face and having those conversations and doing it 300 times. I love that. I mean, you're setting the bar pretty high.
Well, that's probably where my sales, grind mindset comes into play, because they say if you really want to build a successful referral partner network, you should have at least 10 meetings a week, and I'm like, 10 meetings a week? I can easily triple that, right? And so, it was crazy and robust early on. And one of the things that you brought up that we'll talk about later is what is one of the most costly mistakes, right? And what I will say is I've learned so much, and the people in Charlotte specifically are so generous with their time and building meaningful connections. And the referral partner network here is not enormous, but they all gave me advice. You need to visit all of the networking groups, but don't join all of them, right? Find the one that you feel like you connect with the group, and may or may not be in the same vertical, but it'll force you to still remain in a networking mode, because we all get so busy with our business, you quit networking. But then once clients start to drop off, you have to network again, and then it's a little too late. So I visited probably 20 networking groups for lunches or after hours, and that was probably the best advice I ever got. I actually never joined a single one of them. I came away with some really solid one-on-one meetings, with 2 or 3 of the individuals at those groups. But I mean, I've seen it, and I've tried to coach other new business owners. Even last week, I had coffee with a gentleman that started his own franchise and in the Charlotte market, and he was going to join 5 networking groups. And I said, don't do that. You're going to create a networking nightmare for yourself, and you're not even going to have time to fulfill your clients' deliverables. So, I was giving him that advice. So that might be one area that I avoided, an extremely costly, not only financially, not so much, but time consuming mistake that I think a lot of young entrepreneurs could make.
Yeah. And I definitely agree with you. The power of networking. I mean, when I started my coaching practice 16 years ago, I sold my 3 businesses, and then I thought, I think I'll be a solopreneur. where should I start? And to what you said, I did start. I got plugged into a networking group, and they were responsible for at least six figures of business. So that was a great choice, in getting your strategic referral partners lined up. Although I didn't do 300 meetings like you did, so I can only imagine how much faster it would have grown with 300 referral partner meetings. But that's awesome. That is awesome. And to what you just said, Scott, I mean, you were talking about the most expensive mistake. So let me volley back to Matthew. What if you think about if you had to do a redo? What would you say was the most expensive mistake that you have made that other people can learn from? And how did you recover from it?
I think last May I kind of hit a peak, right? I mean, I kind of burned out, right? I mean, I was teaching full time. I had just launched that third business, and I had my business up for sale in June and July, and kind of really stepped back and was disengaged. And I mean, I still had a very successful business. I still do, but I really took time off, and I wasn't like in the mindset of growing the business and making it go like I had the previous 5 or 6 years. And I think, over the last, really from May 2021 until, March, April, May of 2022, I was still in that mindset of, am I really all in at this point? Or is it something I just want to, do I want to go do something different? I mean, I had a vice president of HR job on the table. I still do if I want the job. It's something that is still on the table if I want to go do it. And it came to a point in May of this year. I had to really make a decision to go all in at this point and take it to the next level. And I think that's where I realized, like, personal and professional growth, you kind of had to suffer through a dark time. And that's it. I went all in May, and I'm like, okay, like this is what I want to do. I'm very good on the HR consulting side. I'm very good with my business, but it was that time period, I think I missed opportunities to really grow at the pace I wanted to. And I think there was just some things I had to go through to figure out if it was time to grow, if it was time to go do something different. So, I would probably say 6 or 7 months worth of indecisiveness. It could have cost me business. I don't think it did that much, but it was definitely a mistake. I mean, and I think that I just needed time to reflect and figure out if I was all in or not and ready to go to the next level. And then I got to May of this year, and it was like, I'm definitely all in and ready to come back at it. I think people, doubted me at this point as well, where it was like, he's done. He's not going to do, it's like, he's old at this point. He doesn't have it anymore. So that also added some fuel to the fire with, kind of that very competitive nature in me, where it's like, oh yeah, watch this. And so again, that's kind of where I came. It's almost like coming out of retirement.
So did you have other business owners around you at the time who could just call you out and say, actually, I don't think that was a mistake, Matthew. I just think that's normal stuff, head trash.
Yeah, I mean
that we all go through because business isn't easy. It's up and down, and there's things get tough, and we all have moments, right? But by the way, I really appreciate you sharing that, because you're being so authentic, you're being so transparent, and I think that's validating for so many others who need to hear that they're not the only ones who are considering pivoting or throwing the towel in or doing something different. But anyway, I was just curious, did you have anybody who came around you and said, hey, this is, I want to encourage you to keep going?
Well, I have a friend in Florida was like, he's just like, you gotta get this together. All you're doing is sitting around complaining. He's like, you gotta get this situation under control. I mean, and a lot of personal things as well, but it was definitely something where, it was time to either like do something or move on. And he kind of came to me and said that, he's a mentor of mine as well. And I came back and looked in the mirror. I'm like, what are you doing at this point? Like, you've got thousands of people that rely on you. I mean, I deal with super stressful situations. I deal with terminating employees and disciplining and layoffs. I mean, there's a lot of high pressure things that I'm involved, workplace sexual harassment investigations. And so it's kind of like, a lot of people rely on you, as a leader in around the world. And it's like, you absolutely have to pull this together. And you either going to do it 120% or you're not going to do it at all. And so it was more of a self-reflective moment that like, you got to get to the next level and go all in on this. And, and it was just time to do that. I mean, I'm very good. I've worked in very stressful, high pressure, bankrupt companies, union, steel mills, paper mills, all kinds of crazy things I've been involved in. So that unique skill set that I've worked, I think helps me handle the pressure. But it was a lot of self-reflection on, do I want to continue to do this? And I realized, in May that it was time to go all in. So,
well, that's awesome that you recommitted to what why you decided to open up an HR consulting firm. And if I can even just speak to the immense value of what you offer, because one of my most expensive mistakes was I didn't ever get plugged in at the time with an HR consultant. Had I, would have probably saved me, $250,000 that year, because that was my mistake. I made one decision that was $250,000 hit. And I don't know, I think I can say this out loud I mean, it's years ago. It's like, 20 years ago. I decided to, I wanted to work less, and I hired somebody to be a general manager. And I had a mindset of, everybody's my family. I'm gonna create a family atmosphere. And so I wasn't really thinking corporately. So my general manager was pregnant, and I had her doing all these trade shows where she has to lift a bunch of heavy stuff. And I said something to her about, I'd really, because my second son was born 8 weeks early, and I thought, I don't want you to deliver early because it's not worth it. Why don't you take it easy and maybe think about not doing the whole trade show circuit while you're pregnant? And that landed me in pregnancy discrimination lawsuit. So I was like, what? I'm a mom. I have 3 kids. You're going to sue me for pregnancy discrimination because I just didn't want you to go through what I went through? And so I'm sharing that story. That was a very expensive mistake that I didn't think to bring on an HR consultant. Didn't hire an employment lawyer until I was already in trouble. And had to deal with this lawsuit, this crazy, I thought it would just be frivolous and thrown out. And of course it wasn't. It was, the protected zone. So anyway, all that to say, boy, I would always advise any business owner, get a good employment lawyer, get a great HR consultant, because even my good intentions just, hit me right back.
The other one you got to look. I just read one today where it was a COVID discrimination. It's very similar to what you said. It was like, we don't want you working in this environment because you're potential COVID. You're going to be a higher risk for COVID, and that ended in about a $200,000 settlement as well for a company in Pennsylvania. So that's a new area for companies to deal with, is the COVID discrimination, remote work stuff. I've seen many lawsuits on that so far. I think more to come too. So
wow. So we're talking mistakes. You got some mistakes up your alley or up your sleeve, Brian? As far as, did you make any? Have you made any?
Yeah, a ton of them. So I think if you go back to where I said we sort of waited too long to hire people, we've got like 3 mistakes kind of rolled into one, and we had 2 or 3 people, but we really needed to have 6, and we waited too long for that. And then we made the mistake kind of to what you said, is we hired friends of friends, where we wanted to have like the family, and like, these people are great. They're a great fit culturally. We can train them how to do everything that we want. And we were really wrong about that. And so instead of, that old adage of hire slow, fire fast is really, really true. And I think what happened is we got to be too close friends with people that we worked with. We have a restaurant literally right next door to us. And anytime we would have a bad day, we'd be like, you know what, everyone, let's just go have a happy hour. So we started becoming friends with these people. And then we couldn't do what we needed to do. We hired consultants to say like, hey, we need to get to the next step. And they said, well, let's talk about your team. And at one point, things were so bad that our back office was so messed up that I'm like the business development guy. It's like the only thing that I get excited about. And my business partner, who's sort of like the operations, he's like, you can't go find new people. We can't handle them right now. We can't go get new clients. I'm like, our back office is such a mess that it's actually stunting our growth. So we hired these consultants to say like, well, what can we do? And they said, all right, well, you probably have the wrong people. And they did a full analysis on that. And then they're like, you probably need to get rid of them. We're like, no, they're great. Well, let's just move their seats. They're sitting in the wrong seat. And it still didn't work. So we hired another consultant, and that consultant was like, you have those people and they're actually holding you back from where you want to be. And then we had to make the tough decision to start letting go of people and then hiring new people. So the one consultant said to us, she said, once you get used to working with high caliber, high quality, high end people, you're going to wonder how you went so long without them. And unfortunately, she was 100% right. It was a really tough thing. I'm one of those people that wants to be liked by everyone, and to have to let people go is like just devastating to me. I remember we had to let one person go. I couldn't sleep the night before because she'd been with us for a long time, had a great relationship with her, and was like, I would almost rather keep paying her salary to not even have that conversation, So it was like, that's how bad I felt about it. So, but those are three mistakes that we made rolled into one, all around hiring. Too late, wrong people, trying to move them around and not letting them go soon enough. So I think a lot of other business owners can relate to that struggle as well.
So did you stay friends?
Not really.
It's hard. Yeah.
It's really hard. It's really hard. And, I would say friendly. Like if I see them out, I'll say hi to them, but no.
Yeah.
And so that's a really good point, because the next round I said to my business partner, like, we have the opportunity now. These are going to be all new people. There has to be like a professional wall in between us. We'll still go to the happy hour, but I leave after an hour. I don't stay till, way longer than I used to. So it's a intentional thing that we do now.
That's hard, when you're hiring friends and family. I see the same dynamic, when I work with my clients who are family-run businesses, and they don't want to see it because they're family.
Yeah.
How do you fire your niece, or your brother-in-law, sister-in-law, and they need that third party to come in and say, "Wow, if you didn't know that you were related, or if you didn't realize you were related, and just took a look at their work output and how much it's hurting the business. I mean, you would fire them if they weren't related to you."
So true.
Is that tricky? Yeah.
Very tricky.
Tricky stuff. Scott, got any war stories on mistakes that you've made, very expensive mistakes that other people can try to learn from and not make them themselves?
Yeah, I think just going back to what I mentioned initially, I think I took some good advice to heart by not getting completely caught up in stretching yourself so thin. I'm definitely not high capacity like Matthew. I can't do an MBA and be a professor and run.
I had a couple books on the way.
It's really not my speed. And so we all have our own strengths, right? But so for me, I definitely try to, my whole life, I've tried to learn from other people's mistakes. Sometimes you have to make the mistake yourself for it to really set in. But I've surrounded myself with people that say, I know right where you're at. I've been doing this for 4 years. My business has pivoted 20 times, right? And so let me give you some advice. And so I think they've really helped me not make some of those really costly mistakes as early in my, business as I am. It's been I'm about month 9 in. So I don't know, talk to me in a year and I may have some horror stories to share with you, but.
But what you did to even, what I'm hearing is that you deliberately surround yourself with other entrepreneurs who can come alongside you and just say, hey, Scott, watch out for this, or we see that. And that's so important, not to be isolated. So avoiding a lot of missteps just by doing that best practice, right? Love that.
Yeah.
So moving on to now growing, right? So we're talking about growing your advisory firm. We talked about, mistakes that we've made. We talked about what was the hardest part in the early years, or maybe the hardest part is now, I don't know. So growing now, continue to generate more clients. What's been working the best so far this year in attracting more clients, landing more clients into your firm? Brian, can we start with you?
Sure. I think one of the things that we did a few years ago is we laid the foundation for this to continue to happen. So I'm a financial planner, and I absolutely despise spreadsheets and numbers and details. I really like to talk to people about why they feel a certain way about money and their goals and what they're trying to do. But it would take me like 6-8 hours to do a financial plan that would take someone like my business partner literally 45 minutes. So one of the big things that I had this self-realization that I don't want to get better at things I'm not good at. I just don't want to do them. And I want to work with someone that has those specialties. And we were able to really get me out of the weeds of doing a lot of the technical stuff that I wasn't good at. And then it kind of like sucked my energy away. So we really were able to get me out talking to more people, which, for someone like me, who's an extreme extrovert, that lockdown for during COVID is about as close to torture as you could possibly imagine. So once things opened up, I was ready to go back out there. And I think what we've really made a conscious effort internally to focus on what we actually do to help our clients. And that has really excited everyone in there. We now have a board where it's like, hey, we help someone buy a vacation home. We help them fund their daughter to go to college. And I think our industry focuses on assets under management, how big your book of clients is. And we're trying to get rid of that and really focus on how we change people's lives. And I know it sounds obnoxious to say, but we actually do believe that we are changing the trajectory of some of our clients' lives by just implementing some strategies and helping them answer questions. So by really getting everyone in our firm working in an area that they enjoy and that they're good at has helped us that's really what's launched our growth. I don't have to touch everything. My business partner doesn't have to touch everything. And most people are just doing everything that they enjoy doing every day. So that is a huge way to multiply growth.
So, by the way, I don't think changing lives, it sounds obnoxious at all.
Okay.
I think that's, that's so needed. People are super thirsty for that, to get that kind of transformation and achieve that.
Very true.
So it's wonderful that you can, give that gift of peace, right? Peace of mind people have.
I always say we sell peace of mind or for financial anxiety. That's kind of what we do.
Yes. So I'm just curious, what I'm hearing is you're definitely working when it comes to business development or marketing.
Yeah.
You're choosing to do just the things that you enjoy the most, and that's going to be people facing since you're an extrovert.
Yeah.
So now, as a firm, are you doing what's working now for you? Did you shift to multi-channel marketing? Did you hire an outside marketing firm? Are you doing a lot of the marketing internally? Is LinkedIn working the best for you? Is it speaking?
Great question.
A little bit more about that.
We hired a marketing coordinator about a year ago, and she came from, she went to Florida State and Alabama. So she has a degree in marketing and an MBA in business analytics. So 2 years ago, we would run ads on like Facebook or LinkedIn. We'd have no clue what they were doing. If they were reaching anyone, we were like, oh, I guess our brand's working. So every week, actually, right before this meeting, I had a meeting with her, and she goes through all of those analytics. We're creating campaigns. We're getting more systematized with sending out messaging, fixing up our Instagram. We're doing more videos where people can connect with us and see that, our vibe is really kind of laid back, and we want people to not feel intimidated to come in and talk about money. So she's really kind of taken all the junk that's in my brain and been able to sort of implement it. Her name's Brooke Coleman, and she's been just absolutely awesome in helping our marketing side of things. You add that on with these relationships that I now have built. Now, I thought I was, I brag to people all the time, Scott, that I met with 285 accountants and attorneys in 5 years. And now I feel embarrassed to even say that in front of you.
That's great.
I think Scott put over all of us,
Exactly. I was doing the math at how many people you saw a week on a calculator. So now all those relationships that I've spent all these years cultivating, I now have more time. And I tell, like you talked about earlier, I tell a lot of stories. Like, hey, I go out to an accountant and I'll say, this is how we helped your client. And I walk them through it and they go, wow, that's way different than what we've experienced in the past with other advisors. So that opens up additional channels. So that is, between Brooks Marketing and our ability to give me more time to go talk to more people and share more stories about these transformations, I think has really been the key to our success.
I love that. And I mean, you just shared a huge value bomb that some of our viewers might not, readily catch, but stories.
Yes.
And that's what sticks. Stories are so powerful, and it's about how it impacts you personally and what's changed. What can you do that you couldn't do before?
Yep.
What do you have that you didn't have before?
Exactly. We switched to talking so much less about like investments and to talking about the questions that we actually answer for people, that we started putting videos of like, these are the type of things that we walk through with a business owner. Should I sell this house? Should I sell my company? Should I hire other people? Like, those are the type of things when you start to give people answers to questions, even if it's not the answer they want. We always say no is the second best answer. When people have a question, they are unsure of what the answer is, that causes them a ton of anxiety. If we can go, yeah, you can't do that, but you can do it this way instead, they go, okay, well, at least I can change course and now come up with a different plan. So by focusing on providing people with answers to questions that give them, that would keep them up at night, has really been super valuable.
I love that. So what I'm hearing is what's working for your firm now in landing, your high-end clients and a steady flow of clients is you hired a marketing coordinator, so that's big.
Yep.
You really are focusing on video. That's also huge.
Yep.
I think a lot of people have heard video for years and years and years, and just maybe I'll get around to it.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's pretty powerful.
Definitely.
And then of course story.
Yep.
So,
and we also hired really smart people to actually be able to deliver the work. So
yes,
which has been great.
Yes, it actually, marketing is something that is worth investing by hiring people behind that.
Absolutely.
And it happens well.
Definitely. I totally agree with you.
Yeah. So what about Matthew? What's working this year? What's working the best? I think you alluded to it earlier, word of mouth.
Yeah, I mean, mine is generated a lot on word of mouth. I mean, I'm very active in the local chambers here, and the local chamber in Texas as well. Doing some of the training, some of the volunteer training that I've done, updating business owners on any, New York State's a complicated state to do business in. The laws change almost every day, and so having that subject matter expertise is big for me. I do have marketing. A marketing consulting team that does all the stuff for me. I look at the numbers almost every day, regardless of them doing the work. I mean, I absolutely, am involved in that as detailed as I can be. And then one thing I've noticed, I do a weekly newsletter, right? It's an HR, weekly update, an article, whether it's specific to New York State or like Fair Labor Standards Act. And I've gotten calls from people. Funny enough, a company in Texas a couple of weeks ago said, "Hey, we were looking up predictive scheduling in New York City, and your article popped up first." And I'm like, "Oh, you're like 10 minutes down the road from where I stay in Texas, but I can definitely put a proposal together for the work you want to, the franchise you want to open in New York City." So some of the articles that I've written over the years have been searched enough that they're at the top of the Google search as well when people looking that stuff up. So that's been helpful as well, just through that model, having that information out there, being consistent on that stuff is big. I think Brian said storytelling is a big thing. I mean, whenever I walk into a client's office, I'm talking about the war stories, any HR things I can share, obviously not the confidential things, but yeah, I've dealt with this before. This is the model we can use. I've taken my business and spun it a little bit to the executive coaching, management coaching model, but also gotten a little bit more outside of HR into operations and strategy consulting as well. So kind of, again, growing it, evolving it to make it fit more than just the HR piece, but also laying that foundational piece in HR, but also how it's going to impact the business long term. Nonprofits, working with boards, making sure that structure is set up, and then how it dominoes back and forth between them and the organization, succession planning, continuing education. So all those things really play into the way I've grown my business and support different organizations. Most businesses, nonprofits have the same issues. People are people, but at the same time, you got to make sure it's tweaked to their mission statement, their vision, and we're putting those pieces in place.
And by the way, I did not expect, when I skimmed through your newsletter, it popped up in my inbox. I get a lot of newsletters, as I'm sure you all do, and most of them, frankly, are kind of boring, right? Yours popped. You really got my attention. I mean, your headlines were just so compelling, right? That it made me want to read when my headspace wasn't really I wasn't really working on anything to do with HR and hiring and laws and all that, compliance issues. And yet when I saw it go through, I just had to read it, and then I reread it, and then I clicked the link and read more. And so I can see the work that you put into your newsletters. It's pretty powerful, and it helps to show the breadth of different types of scenarios that you can help, which also means different verticals, different size companies. So just kudos to your newsletter, Matthew.
I give a lot of credit to my marketing team. The Chipotle ad on that last newsletter, that lawsuit settlement was my idea to add that at the time. That headline was a nice eye catcher for sure. Unfortunately, they settled for what, 20 million or whatever. But it kind of added, just be aware that this stuff happens. So anytime I can add value and just show people that these things are real, these organizations, these government agencies are coming after you. The more proactive thing to do is just try to manage it, treat people well. I mean, treat your employees well, do what the law, you really go above and beyond what the law says. But I appreciate that. I'm glad it does have a high open rate, and I've got to give them credit for evolving that newsletter into what it is as well. So
yeah, it was great. My train of thought, it got my attention because actually it spoke to I have 3 kids, and they all work in different industries. But so 2 of my kids work in restaurants. Of course, I was thinking about, I wonder if they're being taken advantage of, and then my mindset went from, that's right, Matthew does a lot of HR consulting, and I see your other topics, and then then my brain goes to, wait, I have a client who's hiring VP of sales. I think he needs to learn, what the parameters are around that. So great newsletter. Scott, what's working the best? I know you've been speaking about strategic referral partners. Anything else you want to add to what's working?
That's definitely paid off. I'm they tell me all the time, like, we can't go anywhere without you being there, and it's part of my extrovert. Probably just like Brian. So being present, LinkedIn is huge. That's a free platform. You can put as much content out there as you want. I think if you have a serve first mindset and you're trying to share those stories or how you can impact them, right? That emotional tie, those definitely seem to get the best traction, most impressions, most engagement. Where I think a lot of people fall short on LinkedIn is they're always talking about product. And
right.
That falls flat. So I think the more value you can offer on there, more personalized stories, has definitely paid off. And let's be honest, perception is reality. So on LinkedIn, you can be the superhero you always wanted to be. It all comes down to what you put out there, right? But your goal should be not only to serve and bring value to your audience, but I've had people reach out to me like 1 month into me starting my business saying, man, it looks like you're crushing it already. We need to hire you before you get too busy. Let's get on the phone. And I'm like, I haven't even gotten a client yet. What are they talking about? And so, but it's that perception is reality. And so it's speaking opportunities. I'm doing a speaking engagement next week, actually on Tuesday. Anything you can do to set yourself up as a thought leader in your space, right? Is important.
What's your talk on?
So it's on personal branding and how that drives sales and revenue into your business.
Yeah, love
And
it.
a lot of it will tie into LinkedIn, right? All of your team should have their own
Yes.
personal brand.
Tell us a little bit more about this 300 group of referral partners. How often are you trying to touch base with them?
So I've honed in on, and we've gone deeper on a strategic partnership or peer group that we've labeled the P3 group, and we're all C-suite executives, and we're actually putting out a joint newsletter monthly now together. So we're going to cover the whole gamut of HR, operations, business coaching, sales, um, finance, right? Marketing, all of the aspects that a business owner would need help with, so that we can pull them into our ecosystem. And, it's kind of a one-stop shop, and we're all vetted. We all know what you could expect by working together. So that's definitely been a unique, I think, evolution of all of these referral partner, relationships. But it's like any referral partner. There's some that you hit it off with. There's some that you might have a good business relationship with, but may not want to grab a drink after work, right?
Mhm.
And so, I think maybe human nature, you tend to migrate to the ones that you really kind of hit it off with. You play golf with them, right? You really get to know them. You spend 4 hours with them, and within a week, I mean, we're referring each other business because I know you a lot better. I trust
Yes.
you.
Yes.
I mean, your values, what a client could expect by working with you, right? And so yeah, I mean, it's just trying to not get not get so many meetings now on my calendar so that I still have the time to build those relationships and go deeper, right? I mean, I'm not going to have super deep relationships with 400 people, but the top 30 or 40 will be the ones that, as we call the goose that continues to lay the golden egg all the time, right? And so that's definitely been beneficial. Trying to think where else I've gotten. I mean, a lot of them have come from referral partners. I will
Mhm.
say that, or even just people that have seen my content and see that I'm connected to someone they know, and they say, "Hey, I want to learn more about what you do." And so I think it's a referral partner meeting. And then once they learn about my background and experience, they go, "Okay, I need to hire you," and they flip the script on me and then start interviewing me. So it's been interesting, the evolution of not only clients, but also, as Matthew mentioned, I thought I had in my mind exactly what I was going to do. And early on, I had a lot of people wanted to hire me to do more of the training and coaching part of the business. And I kept going, I don't really focus on that. I'll introduce you to a couple of people. And they kept saying, but I want to hire you. And I'm going, man, I'm going to get into this building the biggest job imaginable for myself if I start taking on all of these, small engagements that are going to stretch me too thin. And so I've pushed off some of the smaller ones to focus on the larger opportunities, and that's paid off. I think I've got bandwidth to do the ones I want to do. But I'm also still evolving, and I know I need to pivot. There's a pivot coming here pretty fast, and I feel it.
Mm. So when you say your larger opportunities, I think you're referring to the service that you offer that's fractional chief revenue officer.
It's
That's
that, and they all start with building the infrastructure, right? So a lot of companies that want to go outbound, it really blew my mind until I started my business, how many companies want to scale and grow, but they're all inbound leads or recurring revenue. And most of the time they lose a flagship account and say, that was 25% of our revenue. How do we make that up, right? And so they recognize they need to be proactive, but they don't know where to start. They don't know how to find leads, find opportunities, call and qualify customers, walk them through a sales process. They don't use CRMs. They don't even know what a comp plan should look like, right? So I help build and implement all those things for them, and even help with hiring, job descriptions. And so I enjoy doing that part of like building the foundation for these companies. And then once we build the team, a lot of times they want us to stay on and manage the team for, 12 months, 15 months. And then we'll bring in a kind of a sales manager to take over once it's running in the right direction. But so yeah, those are the opportunities that I prefer to lean into.
Mhm.
Um, But I mean, I'll still do the occasional. We want to hire you to help us build a comp plan. Ours isn't working, right?
Right. Sure,
Yeah.
it could certainly lead into a longer engagement after that. And so smart for especially that size, a company who's trying to run lean. They know they need someone who's going to wrap their arms around building that sales team, but they want to do it running lean so they can, cash flow through all their other investments that they need to make. So I think that's awesome. So to kind of transition from what you've shared already, Scott, referrals, networking. When you go to a networking event, you need that 30-second commercial. So I would love to wrap our discussion today for our viewers to be able to just remember each of your 30-second commercials. So in about 30 seconds, can you wrap up with, your 30-second commercial for your firm? Anybody want to go first?
I'll go. I'll be the first to be done. I guess that's always a thing. So, Rivers Edge Advisors is a financial planning and investment management firm that specializes in working with entrepreneurs in all stages of business. That could be startup through growth and maturity, all the way through whether or not they should exit. And we help our clients maximize their net worth by helping them reduce their taxable liabilities. And answer all the questions that they have about any planning needs that are of concern to them.
Awesome.
Way less than 30 seconds.
Yes, I love it. I'm going to time the next one.
Yeah.
Put you on the spot. And your website is
RiversEdgeAdvisors.com.
RiversEdgeAdvisors.com. So,
Yep.
yes. So if anybody wants to connect, and I would highly recommend, go connect with Brian Carney at RiversEdgeAdvisors.com.
Thank you so much.
Yes. All right. So, Scott, you want to share your 30-second commercial and your website?
Okay, sure. So I started iPivx Growth Solutions to help CEOs get their life back and help CFOs sleep better at night by taking the sales and revenue function of their business off of their hands. Most small business owners don't have a sales background, and so they get very frustrated. The teams aren't doing what they want. And I come in and leverage my experience with go-to-market strategies and global expansion to help small to mid-sized companies implement all the infrastructure that they need to really get on the path to scale and grow. My website is actually through Sales Acceleration, so I'm an advisor for them, and so all my content's on their page currently.
Awesome. Matthew.
Yeah, Burke Consulting, an HR consulting firm, really founded to help drive small and medium-sized business HR, strategic HR solutions. What I've run into is finding that most small businesses really don't have that strategic HR solution, just helping them understand the compliance side and again, recruiting and retaining, helping out in any way to help drive that organizational strategy and match, HR solutions to the mission, vision, and core values of the organization, and really doing that for-profit and not-for-profit organizations, effectively for the last 7 years. And my website is burkeconsultingllc.com.
Awesome. And I'll put a little bow on it and wrap up with my 30-second as well and participate along with everybody here. So, did you know that 96% of businesses fail in 10 years? Blind spots is the number one reason for this staggering failure rate. And that's why it's so important for entrepreneurs, for business owners, to be involved in some type of a peer advisory mastermind group. This is what I do. I lead 5 to 12 like-minded entrepreneurs. We meet once a month, online and in person, to help each other grow a thriving 7-figure business. So if you want a trusted group where iron sharpens iron, then I would just invite you to book a free discovery call at ParamountBusinessCoach.com. So this was an awesome discussion, and I really appreciate everyone sharing just from your heart and not holding anything back. I love how everybody showed up today, and I trust that for the people who've been viewing, that you took a lot of value bombs from everyone else's journey And so there's a lot to be learned around the table. So thanks for joining us, and just make sure you subscribe to not miss the next episode.